The autumn leaves crunched beneath Alex's worn sneakers as he made his way through Pinewood Cemetery. While other kids his age rushed home to video games and afternoon snacks, 12-year-old Alex followed this same path every day after school, weaving through weathered headstones until he reached the small hill with the maple tree. His mother's grave stood under that tree. The headstone wasn't fancy, just a simple gray marker with her name, Rose Chen, along with the dates that marked her too-short life. She had been gone for 2 years now, taken by cancer that moved faster than any of the doctors expected. Some days like today, Alex found it hard to remember the sound of her laugh, and that scared him more than anything. Alex set down his backpack and pulled out his lunchbox, which held not just the remains of his uneaten sandwich, but also his most precious possession, his mother's old flip phone. Dad had let him keep it after she died. The service was long disconnected, but that didn't matter to Alex. He flipped it open and dialed the number he knew by heart, his mom's cell phone number. Of course, nothing happened when he pressed call, but Alex put the phone to his ear anyway and waited for the beep that never came. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice small against the vastness of the cemetery. "We had a math test today. I think I did okay. You always said I was good with numbers." A squirrel darted up the maple tree, and Alex watched it for a moment before continuing. "Dad burned the toast again this morning." He smiled slightly. "Remember how you used to tease him about never figuring out the toaster settings? He still hasn't learned." The wind picked up, sending more leaves scattering across the graves. Alex pulled his jacket tighter around himself but didn't move from his spot on the grass. "Tommy kept bugging me at recess again. He wanted to know why I don't join any after-school clubs." Alex's voice grew quieter. "I didn't tell him it's because I come here instead. Dad says I should make more friends, but..." He trailed off, unsure how to explain even to his absent mother that the thought of laughing with other kids while she lay here alone felt wrong somehow, as if having fun would mean he was forgetting her. Mr. Patel, the groundskeeper, waved from across the way. He was raking leaves nearby, but Alex knew he was keeping an eye on him, as usual. Mr. Patel never bothered him, though, just nodded respectfully and went about his work. Sometimes he left a paper cup of hot chocolate on the bench, nearby on especially cold days. Alex appreciated that he never asked questions. "Mrs. Wilson wants us to write a poem for English class." Alex continued into the silent phone. "I don't know what to write about. You were always better with words than me." 20 minutes passed this way, Alex talking about small details from his day while the phone lay cold against his ear. Sometimes he imagined he could hear breathing on the other end, or the soft hum that used to mean his mom was thinking about what to say next. Eventually, the shadows grew longer across the cemetery, and Alex knew it was time to head home. Dad would be wondering where he was, even though they both knew exactly where Alex spent his afternoons. "I better go," he said, his voice catching slightly. "I love you, Mom. I miss you." He closed the phone gently and tucked it back into his lunchbox before standing up. His legs were stiff from sitting on the cold ground, but he didn't mind. This daily visit was worth any discomfort. The walk home took 15 minutes past the corner store where his mom used to buy him cherry popsicles in summer, and the small park where she had taught him to ride a bike. Every part of town held memories of her, which was both a comfort and a kind of quiet pain Alex had grown used to carrying. When he reached their small blue house, Alex noticed his dad's car already in the driveway, which was unusual. Dad normally worked late at the hardware store, especially since Mom died. The extra hours meant more money, Dad explained, but Alex suspected it also meant less time to think about what they'd lost. Alex pushed open the front door, the familiar smell of home greeting him, a mix of the lemon cleaner his mom used to use and the slightly musty scent of the heating system kicking on for the first time that season. "Dad, I'm home," he called out, dropping his backpack by the door. His father appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing his work uniform with the Chen's Hardware logo on the pocket. His hair was getting gray at the temples now, something that hadn't been true when Mom was alive. "Hey, buddy, you're late," his father said, but there was no real criticism in his voice, just a flat tiredness that had become his normal tone. "Sorry, I was..." Alex didn't finish the sentence. They both knew where he'd been. His father nodded and turned back to the kitchen. I picked up some chicken from that place down the street. Thought we could use a break from my cooking. Alex followed him into the kitchen, where takeout containers sat on the table alongside paper plates. This had become their new normal. Meals from boxes instead of his mother's home cooking. Paper plates because neither of them had the energy to wash dishes. "How come you're home early?" Alex asked, sliding into his usual chair. Mr. Reynolds came in to cover the evening shift. His father scooped rice onto a plate. "Parent-teacher conferences are next week. I figured I should actually make it to this one." Alex nodded, feeling a small spark of surprise. His father had missed the last two conferences, sending apologetic emails to his teachers afterward. The fact that he was making an effort this time felt important somehow. They ate mostly in silence, the way they usually did. Sometimes Alex wanted to tell his dad about the things he told his mom at the cemetery, but the words always got stuck somewhere between his heart and his mouth. His father seemed equally trapped in his own thoughts. After dinner, Alex helped clear the table, tossing the paper plates into the trash and putting the leftover food in the refrigerator. Their movements around the kitchen were practiced, a dance of avoidance where they rarely bumped into each other. "Got homework?" his father asked. "Just some math problems," Alex replied. "And I need to think about a poem for English." His father paused, hand on the refrigerator door. "Your mom was good with that stuff." It was the first time he'd mentioned her all evening, and Alex felt a small shock at hearing someone else say it. That his mom had been good with words. It made her feel more real somehow, knowing his dad remembered that too. "Yeah, she was," Alex agreed quietly. An awkward silence fell between them, heavy with all the things they didn't say about her. His father broke it first, clearing his throat. "Well, I've got some paperwork to catch up on. You okay to handle your homework on your own?" Alex nodded, used to this routine. "I'm fine." His father retreated to the small desk in the corner of the living room, and Alex headed upstairs to his bedroom. The walls were still decorated with space posters his mom had helped him put up, though one corner was peeling now. He hadn't asked his dad to help fix it. Sitting at his desk, Alex tried to focus on his math problems, but his mind kept drifting back to the cemetery, to the silent phone and one-sided conversations that somehow made him feel better and worse at the same time. From downstairs he could hear his father moving around, the soft sound of the TV turning on, the creak of the old recliner that had been his mom's favorite spot. They moved through the house like ghosts sometimes, Alex thought, each haunting their own corners of a home that used to feel complete. He pulled out his notebook for the poem assignment, staring at the blank page. After a moment's hesitation, he began to write about a maple tree standing guard over precious memories. He didn't mention his mother directly. That felt too private, too raw to share with his class. But he knew she was in every line. Later, when his homework was done and the house had grown quiet, Alex took out his mother's phone one more time before bed. He didn't dial this time, just held it in his hand, running his thumb over the scratched plastic case. Tomorrow he would visit her again, and the day after that. It was the one promise he could keep in a world where everything else felt uncertain. As he drifted off to sleep, the phone clutched in his hand, Alex dreamed of maple leaves and his mother's voice calling him home. The parent-teacher conference was scheduled for Thursday evening. Alex watched his father iron a shirt that morning, something he hadn't done in months. Small wrinkles formed between his dad's eyebrows as he concentrated on the task, reminding Alex of how his mother used to tease him about those thinking lines. "Do you want me to come with you?" Alex asked, pouring cereal into a bowl. His father looked up. The iron paused mid-stroke. "To the conference? Don't you usually hang out at the library when I'm busy?" Alex shrugged. The library had been his excuse on the rare occasions his father asked where he went after school. He never mentioned the cemetery visits, and somehow his father never asked directly. It was as if they had silently agreed not to discuss it. "I just thought maybe I should be there, since it's about me and all." His father considered this, then nodded. "Sure, if you want to. We can grab dinner afterward." It wasn't much, but it felt like the first real plan they'd made together in ages. Alex tucked this small victory away, something to tell his mom about later. School dragged on that day. Ms. Rivera handed back their math tests, and Alex smiled when he saw the B+ marked in red at the top. His mom would have been proud. Tommy Jackson knocked into his desk during the class change, sending Alex's pencil case clattering to the floor. "Cemetery boy," Tommy whispered as he passed. "Talking to dead people again today?" Alex's face burned as he bent to pick up scattered pens and pencils. He hadn't realized anyone knew about his daily visits. Had Tommy followed him? Or was it just a lucky guess meant to hurt? During lunch, Alex sat alone as usual, picking at his sandwich while watching the other kids laugh and talk in groups. Lisa Chen, no relation, despite sharing his last name, smiled at him from her table, and for a brief moment Alex considered walking over. But then her friends called for her attention, and the moment passed. When the final bell rang, Alex hesitated at the school gate. He should probably go straight home to get ready for the conference, but the pull of the cemetery was strong. Just a quick visit, he decided. He'd make it quick. The sky was overcast, threatening rain as Alex made his way along the familiar path. Mr. Patel was nowhere to be seen today, but someone had left fresh flowers at several graves, including his mother's. Alex wondered who. His father rarely visited, claiming it was too painful. He sat down and pulled out the phone. "Hey, Mom," he began, his voice softer than usual. "I got a B+ on my math test. Dad's coming to the parent-teacher conference tonight. We're going to get dinner after." A raindrop landed on his hand, then another on the phone's screen. "I can't stay long today. I just wanted to tell you about the test." He paused, the words he rarely spoke aloud pushing against his throat. "I think Dad's trying." He ironed a shirt. "This morning." More raindrops fell, pattering against the leaves and headstones. Alex didn't move yet, though the sensible thing would be to head home before the downpour began. "Tommy at school called me cemetery boy today. I think he knows I come here." Alex wiped rainwater from his face, or maybe it was tears. "I don't care what he thinks, but I wonder if Dad knows too. We never talk about it." The rain was falling steadily now, but still Alex sat, the phone pressed to his ear, as if it were a lifeline to another world. "Sometimes I think Dad blames me a little," he whispered, "for being okay enough to go to school and do homework and stuff while he's still so sad he can barely look at me. Is that weird? Am I supposed to be more like him?" Thunder rumbled in the distance, and Alex finally stood up. "I gotta go, Mom. I'll tell you about the conference tomorrow." He was soaked by the time he reached home, his hair plastered to his forehead and water squelching in his sneakers. His father was pacing in the living room, phone in hand, and his expression shifted from worry to relief to anger when Alex walked in. "Where were you?" his father demanded. "I've been calling all over. Lisa's mom hadn't seen you at the library. I was about to call the police." Alex froze, dripping on the welcome mat. "I'm sorry. I lost track of time." "Doing what? Where were you?" His father's voice cracked slightly. Alex looked down at his wet shoes. "Just walking." "In the rain? For an hour?" His father ran a hand through his hair. "Alex, I need to know where you go every day. I'm not stupid. I know it's not the library. Your moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Alex gripped the straps of his backpack tightly. "I go see Mom," he finally said, his voice barely audible over the rain hitting the windows. "I sit with her and tell her about my day." His father's face seemed to collapse in on itself, the anger giving way to something more complicated. He sat heavily on the couch. "Every day?" Alex nodded. "Every day." They stared at each other across the room, the distance between them suddenly vast. His father covered his face with his hands for a moment, shoulders slumped. "Get changed," he said, finally. "We're already late for the conference." The drive to school was silent. Alex stared out the window at the rain-slick streets, wondering if he'd said too much. They'd managed 2 years by carefully avoiding the topic of his mother, by stepping around the hole she'd left in their lives. Now he'd torn open that careful silence, and he wasn't sure what would fill it. Ms. Rivera smiled when they entered her classroom, seemingly unbothered by their tardiness. She shook his father's hand and gestured for them to sit at the small student desks. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Chen. Alex is one of my brightest students. His test scores are consistently strong, particularly in mathematics." His father nodded, stiffly. "He gets that from his mother." Ms. Rivera's smile softened. "I see. Well, he's certainly applying himself. My only concern is his social development. Alex tends to keep to himself. He doesn't participate in any after-school activities, and during group work he's reluctant to engage with his peers." Alex studied the scratches on the desktop, feeling his father's eyes on him. "Does he have friends here?" his father asked quietly. Ms. Rivera hesitated. "He's well-liked when he does interact. Lisa Chen often tries to include him, but Alex keeps his distance." The conference continued with Ms. Rivera showing examples of Alex's work, praising his writing and suggesting books that might challenge him further. His father asked appropriate questions, made notes on the paper she provided, all while Alex sat silently beside him, acutely aware of the earlier revelation hanging between them. They didn't go for dinner afterward. His father claimed a headache, and Alex didn't argue. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the streetlights as they drove home in silence. It wasn't until they were back in the house, Alex warming leftovers in the microwave, that his father spoke. Again. "What do you tell her?" Alex turned, the microwave humming behind him. "What?" "Your mother. What do you tell her when you visit?" The question was so unexpected that Alex found himself answering honestly. "Everything. School stuff. Things I'm thinking about. Whatever I'd tell her if she was here." His father leaned against the counter, arms crossed protectively over his chest. "And that helps? Talking to her like that?" Alex nodded slowly. "Yeah, it helps." The microwave beeped, but neither of them moved. "I have her old phone," Alex admitted. "I pretend to call her." He expected his father to be angry about the phone, but instead something in his expression cracked open. "I didn't know you kept that. You were cleaning out her things, you didn't want it." His father closed his eyes briefly. "There are a lot of things I should have done differently, Alex." The simple admission hung in the kitchen air. Alex wasn't sure how to respond, so he just nodded again. "I miss her too," his father said, his voice low and rough. "Every single day." It was the first time in 2 years he'd said those words aloud, and they seemed to change the air in the room, making it somehow easier to breathe. "I know, Dad." They ate in the living room that night, watching an old movie his mother had loved. They didn't talk much, but the silence felt different, less like a wall and more like a shared space. Alex noticed his father glancing at him sometimes, with a thoughtful expression. When it was time for bed, his father awkwardly patted his shoulder. "Maybe on Saturday we could visit her together, if you want company." Alex felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. "Yeah, I think she'd like that." Later, lying in bed with his mother's phone nearby, Alex realized he hadn't called her today. Yet somehow he felt closer to her than he had in months, as if by finally speaking her name aloud in their home, by acknowledging the grief they both carried, they'd brought her presence back into their lives in a different way. Tomorrow he would tell her all about it, and maybe, just maybe, his father would find words to tell her too. Saturday morning dawned cold but clear. Alex woke early, his stomach fluttering with a strange mix of excitement and worry. His father had promised they would visit Mom's grave, together today, something they hadn't done since the funeral. Would it be weird? Would Dad just stand there awkwardly while Alex did his usual routine? Or worse, would he cry and make Alex feel like he needed to comfort him? The smell of coffee, and something sweet drifted up from the kitchen. Alex found his father at the stove flipping pancakes, his mother's recipe, with blueberries mixed into the batter. "Morning," his father said, glancing over his shoulder. "Hungry?" Alex nodded, sliding onto a kitchen chair. "You're making Mom's pancakes." His father paused, spatula mid-flip. "Yeah, thought it might be appropriate for today." The pancakes were slightly burned on one side, nothing like his mother's perfect golden circles, but Alex didn't mind. It was the effort that counted, the fact that his father was trying to bring a piece of mom back into their Saturday morning. Mr. Patel probably thinks I'm weird, Alex said suddenly, pouring syrup over his stack. The groundskeeper at the cemetery. He sees me there every day. His father set his own plate down across the table. Does he ever say anything to you? Not really. Sometimes he leaves hot chocolate on the bench near Mom's grave. But he never bugs me or tells me to leave. His father cut his pancakes with the side of his fork, a gesture so familiar it made Alex's chest ache. His mom used to tease him about not using a knife. That's kind of him, his father said finally. Maybe we should thank him today. They finished breakfast in comfortable silence. Alex noticed his father had shaved carefully and put on a clean sweater, small signs that this visit mattered to him too. The drive to the cemetery took only 10 minutes, but it felt longer, the weight of what they were doing hanging between them. His father parked in the small lot by the entrance, turning off the engine but not immediately getting out. It's been a while, he said, staring through the windshield at the iron gates. I should have come more often. Alex looked at his hands. It's okay. She knows you miss her. His father turned to him then, really looked at him, with an expression Alex couldn't quite read. You sound so sure of that. I am sure, Alex said simply. They walked through the gates together, Alex automatically leading the way along the path he knew by heart. The cemetery looked different on a Saturday morning. There were a few other visitors placing flowers or tending to graves, and the maintenance crew was working. On a distant section, Mr. Patel was raking leaves near his mother's plot. He straightened when he saw them approach, nodding respectfully. Good morning, he said, his voice accented but warm. It is nice to see you with company today, young man. Alex's father stepped forward, extending his hand. Mr. Chen, I'm Alex's father. Thank you for looking out for my son during his visits. Mr. Patel's weathered face broke into a gentle smile as they shook hands. He is a good boy, very devoted. Your wife must have been a special lady. She was, his father agreed, his voice catching slightly. Mr. Patel tactfully moved away to continue his work elsewhere, leaving them alone at Rose's grave. The maple tree above had lost most of its leaves now, a few stubborn ones still clinging to the higher branches. Alex automatically sat down in his usual spot, then looked up at his father, who stood awkwardly with his hands in his pockets. This is what you do? You just sit and talk to her? His father asked. Alex nodded, reaching for his backpack. Yeah, I use her old phone too. I pretend to call her. His father's eyes widened slightly at the sight of the familiar flip phone. You kept that working all this time? The battery still holds a charge. I'm careful with it. His father slowly lowered himself to sit on the grass beside Alex, wincing slightly as his knees cracked. So what do we do now? Alex hesitated, suddenly shy about his ritual. I usually just tell her about my day, or things I'm thinking about. And you really feel like she hears you? It wasn't asked with skepticism, but with genuine curiosity. Alex thought about it before answering. I don't know if she hears me exactly, but it helps me remember her. And it makes me feel better to talk about stuff even if nobody answers. His father nodded slowly. That makes sense. They sat in silence for a few minutes, the distant sound of a lawnmower and birds in the maple tree the only interruption. Then Alex flipped open the phone and dialed the familiar number, putting it to his ear as he always did. Hey, Mom, he said, his voice quieter than usual with his father listening. I brought Dad with me today. His father's eyes grew shiny, but he didn't look away. Alex continued. We had your pancakes for breakfast. Dad burned them a little bit, but they were still good. A small laugh escaped his father and Alex smiled. Do you want to say hi? He asked, offering the phone. His father hesitated, then slowly took the phone, holding it as if it might break. He stared at the screen for a long moment before putting it to his ear. Hi, Rose, he said, his voice rough. I'm sorry it took me so long to come back. Alex watched as his father closed his eyes, the words seeming to come easier once he wasn't looking at the grave or his son. The hardware store is doing well. I hired a new kid to help on weekends. You'd like her. She organizes. Everything the way you used to nag me to do. He paused, swallowing hard. Alex is doing great in school. Smart like you. Quiet like me, I guess. It was strange to hear his father talk this way, as if his mother might really be listening. But something about it felt right too, like they were briefly a family of 3 again instead of 2 broken pieces. I miss you, his father said finally, so quietly Alex barely heard it. Every day. He handed the phone back to Alex, wiping quickly at his eyes. Alex pretended not to notice, giving his father a moment to compose himself. They stayed for nearly an hour, taking turns talking into the phone. His father shared news about old friends and family members, while Alex told her about his science project and the book he was reading. It wasn't exactly how Alex usually spent his cemetery visits, but there was something comforting about sharing this ritual with his dad. When they finally stood to leave, his father laid his hand on top of the headstone for a moment. Maybe we could do this again sometime? Alex asked carefully as they walked back toward the car. His father nodded, putting an arm around Alex's shoulders. I'd like that. The rest of the weekend passed with a different feeling in the house. His father dug out some old photo albums on Sunday afternoon, and they sat on the couch looking through pictures of his mother, something they hadn't done since right after the funeral. You have her smile, his father said, pointing to a photo of Rose laughing at a beach picnic. And her bad handwriting, Alex added, showing a birthday card she'd written. They ordered pizza and watched old movies, and for the first time in ages, the house felt less empty. Monday morning came with gray skies and a promise of rain. Alex packed his lunch and tucked his mother's phone into the side pocket of his backpack as usual. His father was already at the kitchen table, coffee mug in hand. Have a good day at school, his father said as Alex headed for the door. Then, more hesitantly, say hi to your mom for me if you visit today. Alex nodded, a warm feeling spreading through his chest. I will. School was easier that day somehow. In English class, Alex found himself raising his hand to answer a question about their reading assignment. Lisa Chen smiled at him from across the room, and at lunch he gathered his courage and sat at the edge of her table instead of alone. Mind if I join you? He asked. Lisa scooted over to make room. Not at all. Want half my cookie? My mom always packs extra. By the time the final bell rang, the rain clouds had given way to pale sunshine. Alex headed for the cemetery, his steps lighter than they had been in weeks. Even Tommy's snide comment in the hallway hadn't bothered him much. The maple tree was golden in the late afternoon light as he settled into his usual spot. Alex pulled out the phone, dialed, and put it to his ear. Hey, Mom. Dad says hi. We visited. You together on Saturday, did you notice? It was nice. He told her about his day, about sitting with Lisa at lunch and answering questions in class. He described the science experiment they were planning and how his English teacher had praised his poem about the maple tree. I think maybe things are getting a little better at home, he said. Dad and I looked at old pictures yesterday. He didn't seem sad the whole time. He even laughed at that one where you got ice cream on your nose at the fair. A cool breeze rustled the remaining leaves. Above him, Alex fell silent for a moment, just listening to the quiet of the cemetery. That's when it happened. The phone in his hand suddenly vibrated. Alex nearly dropped it in shock. The screen, which had been dark as always during his pretend calls, was now glowing with an incoming call. The display showed a single word. Mom. His heart hammering in his chest, Alex stared at the screen. This wasn't possible. The service had been disconnected years ago. The phone was only good for pretending, and yet it was vibrating in his hand, the screen clearly showing that impossible word. With trembling fingers, Alex pressed the answer button and lifted the phone to his ear. Hello? He whispered. At first there was nothing but static, a soft, staticky hiss that might have just been the sound of a dead connection. But then just as Alex was about to pull the phone away to check if the call had dropped, he heard something else. A whisper, so faint he could barely make it out. A woman's voice, broken by static. Alex. Listen. Then the screen went dark. The connection lost as suddenly as it had appeared. Alex sat frozen, the phone clutched in his hand, his heart beating so hard he could feel it in his throat. That voice, it had sounded like her, like Mom, but that was impossible, wasn't it? Alex ran all the way home, his backpack bouncing against his spine, the phone clutched tightly in his hand. His lungs burned and a stitch stabbed at his side, but he didn't slow down. He needed to tell his dad what had happened. His dad would know what to do. But as he burst through the front door, breathless and wide-eyed, the house was empty. Of course, his father wouldn't be home from work for at least another 2 hours. Alex sank onto the couch, still panting, the flip phone lying on his palm like something alive and dangerous. Had he imagined it? Maybe he'd fallen asleep at the grave and dreamed the whole thing. Or maybe the old phone was just glitching, showing random lights and making static sounds before the battery finally died for good. But the voice, that whisper that sounded so much like her. Alex carefully pressed the power button, watching the screen light up. The battery indicator showed it was still half charged. He checked the call history, his hand trembling slightly. There it was. 1. Received call. No number listed, just Mom as the contact. The timestamp matched just minutes ago. This is crazy, Alex whispered to himself. Phones don't just call from nowhere. He tried calling his father at work, but the hardware store's line was busy. Alex paced the living room, unsure what to do. Should he call the phone company? But what would he say? My dead mother's disconnected. Phone just called me? In the end, he made himself a sandwich he couldn't eat and tried to start his homework, but the equations blurred before his eyes. All he could think about was that whispered voice. What had she been trying to tell him? By the time his father's car pulled into the driveway, Alex had worked himself into a state of nervous exhaustion. He met his dad at the door, words tumbling out before his father could even set down his keys. Dad. Something weird happened at the cemetery. Mom's phone rang, and when I answered it, I heard a voice, and it sounded like her, and the caller ID said, Mom. And I know it sounds crazy, but whoa, slow down. His father held up his hands. Take a breath. What happened? Alex did as he was told, filling his lungs and then exhaling slowly before starting again. He explained everything. How he'd been talking to his mother as usual, how the phone had suddenly vibrated with an incoming call, the static and then that whisper. His father's face grew increasingly troubled as Alex spoke. When he finished, his father gently took the phone from him, examining it as if he might find some obvious explanation. You said it showed Mom on the caller ID? Alex nodded. It's still in the call history. Look. His father scrolled through the phone's menu, finding the call log. His frown deepened. Alex, he said carefully, I know how much you miss her. I miss her too. But phones don't... this isn't... You think I made it up? Alex felt a hot flush of anger. Or that I'm crazy? No. His father set the phone down, rubbing his face. I don't think you're crazy. But there has to be a logical explanation. Maybe someone called the number by accident, and the phone still had your mom listed as a contact. The service was disconnected years ago, Alex pointed out. You said so yourself. His father sighed. I don't know then. Maybe the battery is failing and caused some kind of glitch. Alex could see his father didn't believe him. Not really. And why would he? Dead people don't make phone calls. It sounded insane even to Alex, and he was the one who'd experienced it. You know what? Never mind, Alex said, snatching the phone back. I'm going to my room. Alex, wait. But Alex was already halfway up the stairs, a hard lump forming in his throat. He shut his bedroom door and flopped onto his bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on his ceiling. Another relic from when his mother was alive. She'd helped him stick them up there, making patterns that weren't quite real constellations but were special to them. The phone lay on his chest, silent now. Maybe his father was right. Maybe it had all been a glitch or his imagination or some combination of wishful thinking and grief playing tricks on him. But it had felt so real. Alex must have fallen asleep, because the next thing he knew, his room was dark except for the faint glow of the stars above him, and someone was knocking softly on his door. "Alex? Dinner's ready." His father's voice was tentative, as if expecting to be rebuffed. Alex sat up groggily, the phone sliding from his chest onto the bedspread. "Coming," he called, his voice thick with sleep. Downstairs, his father had ordered Chinese food, Alex's favorite, and set the table with real plates instead of the paper ones they usually used, a peace offering. They ate in silence for a few minutes before his father cleared his throat. "I've been thinking about what you told me." Alex looked up, a forkful of lo mein halfway to his mouth. "I shouldn't have dismissed what happened," his father continued. "Whatever it was, a glitch, a wrong number, or something else, it was real to you and it scared you. I'm sorry I didn't handle it better." Alex lowered his fork. "I know how it sounds. I wouldn't believe me either." His father smiled sadly. "When your mother first got sick, she used to say she could feel her grandmother sitting with her during chemo treatments. Her grandmother had been dead for 15 years. I thought it was the medications talking, but she was so sure." He shrugged. "Who am I to say what's possible and what isn't?" It wasn't exactly saying he believed Alex, but it was something. "What do you think I should do?" Alex asked. His father considered. "Well, if it happens again, try to stay calm, see? If you can hear more of what the voice is saying." The simple, practical advice made Alex feel better somehow. His father wasn't mocking him or suggesting he see a counselor. He was treating it like a mystery they could solve together. "Thanks, Dad." After dinner, they watched TV together, neither mentioning the phone again. But when Alex went up to bed, he placed it carefully on his nightstand, making sure it was fully charged, just in case. The next day at school, Alex found it hard to concentrate. He kept thinking about the phone call, replaying those few seconds, over and over in his mind. The voice had definitely said his name, followed by "listen." But listen to what? During lunch, Lisa scooted her chair closer to his. "You okay?" she asked. "You seem a million miles away today." Alex considered telling her what had happened but couldn't bring himself to do it. She'd think he was weird, or worse, making up stories for attention. "Just tired," he said instead. "My mom says 7th grade is when the real homework starts." Lisa offered him half her sandwich, the same way she'd shared her cookie yesterday. "Want this?" "I'm not hungry." Alex accepted it with a small smile. It was nice having someone to sit with, even if he couldn't share his biggest secret. After school, he hesitated at the gates. Part of him wanted to rush to the cemetery to see if the phone would ring again. Another part was scared of what might happen if it did, or worse, if it didn't, proving it had all been his imagination. In the end, he decided to go to the library instead. The real library this time, not his old excuse. If there was some explanation for what had happened, maybe he could find it in books about phones or electricity or ghosts. The library was quiet and warm after the chill November air. Mrs. Nyan, the librarian, smiled as he entered. "Alex, haven't seen you in a while. Looking for anything special today?" Alex shifted uncomfortably. Do you have any books about weird things that happen with electronics, like phones acting strange?" Mrs. Nguyen raised an eyebrow. "Technical problems? That would be in the technology section, but... Or maybe books about people who, hear from people who are gone?" Alex felt his face heating up. Understanding dawned in Mrs. Nguyen's kind eyes. "Ah, why don't you come with me?" She led him to a quiet corner of the library where several shelves were labeled spirituality and paranormal. "You might find what you're looking for here," she said. "And Alex, whatever you're going through, you're not alone. Many people have experiences they can't explain, especially after losing someone they love." Alex looked up surprised. "How did you know?" "Small town." She smiled sadly. "I knew your mother. She helped organize the summer reading program here every year. Lovely woman." She left him alone with the books, and Alex spent the next hour flipping through titles about near-death experiences, communicating with the departed, and electronic voice phenomena. Most of it seemed far-fetched, but there were stories from people who claimed to have received phone calls, texts, or emails from deceased loved ones. Some believed it was real contact from beyond. Others thought it was electrical anomalies or coincidences given meaning by grieving minds. None of it gave Alex a definitive answer, but it did make him feel less alone. It was getting dark by the time he headed home, a book about unexplained phenomena tucked into his backpack alongside his mother's phone. As he walked, the streetlights flickered on above him, casting pools of yellow light onto the sidewalk. That's when he noticed the woman. She was standing under the streetlight ahead, her back to him. Something about her was strangely familiar, the way she stood perhaps, or the color of her coat. As Alex got closer, he saw she had chestnut hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, just like his mother used to wear. His heart began to pound. He quickened his steps. "Mom?" he called out, his voice cracking. The woman turned and Alex's hopes crashed. It wasn't her, of course it wasn't. This woman was younger, with sharper features, though there was something in her eyes that seemed familiar. She stared at him with an expression of shock. "Did you just call me Mom?" she asked. Alex blushed furiously. "I'm sorry. I thought you looked like someone else from behind." The woman took a step toward him, her eyes searching his face with unsettling intensity. "What's your name?" she asked. Alex hesitated, remembering warnings about talking to strangers. But they were on a public street, houses all around them, and something about this woman made him answer. "Alex. Alex Chen." The woman's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes widening. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's you." A chill that had nothing to do with the November air crept up Alex's spine. "Do I know you?" he asked. The woman seemed to be struggling to compose herself. No, you don't. But I've been looking for you." She hesitated, then added, "My name is Catherine. I think we need to talk." The phone in Alex's backpack suddenly vibrated. Not the soft hum of a text message, but the sustained buzz of an incoming call. Without taking his eyes off the strange woman, he slowly reached into his bag and pulled it out. The screen was lit up with a call from Mom. The woman, Catherine, stared at the phone, her face draining of color. "That's not possible," she whispered. "That's the number I've been calling." Alex stared at Catherine, then at the glowing phone in his hand, his mind struggling to make sense of what was happening. "You've been calling this number?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Catherine nodded, her eyes fixed on the phone. "For weeks now, I didn't think anyone would answer. It was just something I felt I needed to do." The phone continued to vibrate between them. With a trembling finger, Alex pressed the answer button and put it on speaker. Static filled the air between them, louder than before. Then, through the crackling noise, "Alex? Catherine, Gray's Diner." The voice was clearer this time. Definitely. A woman's, broken by interference but still recognizable enough that Alex felt his knees go weak. The call ended abruptly, leaving them standing in stunned silence under the streetlight. "That sounded like," Catherine began, then stopped herself. "Like my mom," Alex finished for her. "But how do you know that number? And why did she say Gray's Diner?" Catherine seemed to be making a difficult decision. Finally, she said, "There's a diner at the edge of town. Gray's, I think we're supposed to meet there." "We don't even know each other," Alex protested, though he couldn't deny the strange connection that seemed to be forming. "Why would my mom's phone tell us to go to a diner together?" Catherine's eyes softened. "Because I think we have more in common than you realize. Will you trust me enough to find out what's happening? We can sit in a public place and you can call your dad to let him know where you are." Alex hesitated. This was exactly the kind of situation his father had warned him about. Strangers offering to take him somewhere. But something about Catherine felt familiar, and the fact that she'd been calling his mother's number. "I'll text my dad first," he decided. "Tell him where I'm going." Gray's Diner was a small 1950s-style restaurant that had been on the edge of town for as long as Alex could remember. His mother used to bring him there for milkshakes after doctor's appointments. The familiar neon sign glowed against the darkening sky as Catherine parked her car. I've never been here before, she said, looking up at the sign. Is it good? They have the best chocolate milkshakes, Alex replied automatically, then felt a strange pang. That's what his mother always said. Inside, the diner was warm and smelled of coffee and fried potatoes. A few evening customers occupied booths along the windows, but the place was mostly empty. The waitress, Judy, who'd worked there forever, gave Alex a surprised smile. Well, look who's here. Haven't seen you in ages, kiddo. Your usual booth? Alex nodded, leading Catherine to a corner booth with a view of the street. It was where he and his mom always sat. You're a regular, Catherine observed as they settled into the cracked vinyl seats. I used to come with my mom, before she got sick. Alex fidgeted with a paper napkin. So, are you going to tell me who you are and why you've been calling my mom's old number? Catherine took a deep breath. My name is Catherine Lynn. I was adopted as a baby by a couple in Portland. I never knew my birth parents. When I turned 25 last year, I started searching for information about them. The waitress interrupted, taking their orders, a chocolate milkshake for Alex and coffee for Catherine. When she left, Catherine continued, I hired someone to help me search. All I had was my birth date and the hospital where I was born. It took months, but eventually, I found out my birth mother's name. She paused, meeting Alex's eyes directly. It was Rose Chen. Other world seemed to tilt around Alex. That's my mom's name. Catherine nodded. I know. When I found her name, I was so excited to finally connect with her. I searched online, found your address, and came to town last week. But when I looked up her name in local records, her voice faltered. I found her obituary instead. Alex's hands trembled on the table. You're saying you're my sister? Half-sister, technically. Rose had me when she was very young before she met your father. She gave me up for adoption. Alex's mind was racing. His mother had never mentioned having another child. How could she have kept something so huge a secret? I don't believe you, he said, even as a part of him began connecting the dots. The familiar something in Catherine's eyes, the way she stood, the chestnut hair so like his mother's. My dad would have known. Catherine pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. Inside were adoption papers, birth records, and a letter. The handwriting on the letter made Alex's heart stop. The looping cursive was unmistakably his mother's. I found this letter in my adoption file, Catherine said softly. She wrote it when she gave me up. She was only 18, still in high school. Her parents, your grandparents, didn't give her a choice. Alex read the letter with blurring eyes. It was addressed to my darling daughter, and spoke of heartbreak and hope, of a young mother's wish that her baby would find a loving family, since she couldn't provide one herself. It was signed simply, Your mother, Rose. I never knew, Alex whispered. She never told me. Maybe she was waiting until you were older, Catherine suggested, or maybe it was too painful to talk about. The waitress returned with their drinks. Alex stared into the swirls of whipped cream on his milkshake, trying to process this impossible revelation. So you found out she died? And then what? You started calling her old phone number? Catherine nodded. It sounds strange, I know. When I discovered she had passed away, I was devastated. I'd spent my whole life wondering about her, imagining our reunion. To come so close and then lose that chance. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I found her number in some old records. I knew the service was probably disconnected, but I just needed to hear the voicemail or whatever was left. I'd call at night and just listen to the dead air. It was my way of feeling connected to her, and the phone actually rang, for you too. Yesterday afternoon, I was at her grave. I found it in the cemetery records, and I called the number like I'd been doing. But this time there was static and a voice that said, Find Alex. That's when I knew I had to look for you. Alex's head was spinning. It was too much, the mysterious calls, this stranger claiming to be his sister, his mother's secret past. I need to call my dad, he said suddenly. He needs to know about this. His father arrived at the diner 20 minutes later, his face tight with worry. Alex watched as his dad's expression transformed from concern to shock as Catherine introduced herself and explained who she was. He examined the documents she provided, his hands shaking slightly. "Rose never told me," he said finally, looking up at Catherine with wonder and confusion. "We met when she was 21. She never mentioned—" "Would it have changed how you felt about her?" Catherine asked quietly. His father shook his head immediately. "No, never. But I wish I'd known. We could have found me sooner," Catherine suggested with a sad smile. They talked for hours, Alex's father asking Catherine about her life, her adoptive parents, her work as a software engineer. Alex watched them, seeing small similarities he hadn't noticed before. The way they both gestured when making a point, a certain expression when thinking. "The phone calls," Alex said suddenly, interrupting their conversation. Do you think Mom was trying to bring us together somehow?" His father looked uncomfortable, the rational part of him clearly struggling with the idea. But Catherine nodded. "I don't know if it was really her or just some strange coincidence of technology. But whatever it was, it led us to each other. And I think that's what she would have wanted." Later that night, back at home, Alex sat on his bed with his father beside him, both still trying to process everything that had happened. "Are you okay?" his father asked gently. Alex considered the question. "I think so. It's weird to suddenly have a sister I never knew about, but also kind of nice." His father nodded. "Catherine seems like a good person. She has Rose's kindness in her eyes. Do you think we should invite her for Thanksgiving?" Alex asked. "She said she doesn't have family nearby." His father smiled, resting a hand on Alex's shoulder. "I think that's a wonderful idea." Before going to sleep, Alex took out his mother's phone one last time. The battery was nearly dead now, the screen dim as he opened it. He dialed her number and put the phone to his ear, following the ritual that had comforted him for so long. "Hey, Mom," he whispered. "I met Catherine today. I understand why you couldn't tell me about her. Dad does too." He paused, swallowing, the lump in his throat. "Thank you for helping us find each other. I love you." There was no mysterious call this time, no static-filled voice or strange message. Just silence. But somehow Alex felt certain his mother had heard him. The next morning, the phone wouldn't turn on at all. The battery had finally died. Alex wasn't surprised. It felt right somehow, as if its purpose had been fulfilled. At breakfast, his father was making pancakes again, this time with chocolate chips. "I was thinking," his father said as he flipped a perfectly golden circle. "Maybe we could help Catherine look for an apartment nearby, if she wanted to stay in town for a while." Alex smiled. "I'd like that." Later that afternoon, Catherine joined them at the cemetery. They planted spring bulbs around Rose's headstone, tulips and daffodils that would bloom when winter finally ended. As the three of them worked together, kneeling in the cold earth beneath the maple tree, Alex felt something shift inside him. The grief was still there, a shadow that would never completely leave. But alongside it now was something new, a sense of family rebuilt, of connections restored. His mother was gone. But in losing her, he'd found a sister, and somehow found his father again too. It wasn't the family he'd known before, but it was his family nonetheless. And as the first snowflakes of winter began to fall around them, Alex knew that whatever happened next, they would face it together.